What's up to all five of you watching? Welcome to my brain. I'm Meeks, and this is Words Are Hard. So today I have on a very special guest. She is a political activist, a true political activist, the producer of the Slightly Offensive show on YouTube. Go check that out. And now the host of her own podcast called Rapid Fire, but also more importantly, my good friend Savanah Hernandez. Savannah, hi. Hi
Hi,
again.
Nika. Hi. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm very excited to be here today.
Yeah, girly, thanks for coming on. So,
Of course.
you know, I just to give people context of who you are, how did you get into politics? Like how did you start off and how is it going now?
So I got my start in politics back in 2018. I was a college graduate. I had been at a school for a year, had my journalism degree. I got a call up from this place called InfoWars and Alex Jones. I've never heard of them before in my life. They asked if I wanted to be a production assistant, and I said yes. And from there, I started delving into politics, working with Alex, working as a production assistant. I expressed my want to actually go and report on what was going on in the streets of America. Started doing some reporting, also produced the afternoon show, The War Room with Owen Schroyer, filled and produced for Alex, and then ultimately became a reporter and political commentator with one of the first big events Alex sent me to being the Hong Kong protests in 2019. So that's how I got into politics. It was very interesting because when I first started, I couldn't name the three branches of government as a 21-year-old woman. But now I'm very on fire for our country now that I know what's going on. And here we are.
That's dope, dude. So tell me about your experience in Hong Kong. I know we've talked about it before, but let's let everyone know. I love asking you about it.
Yeah, I love talking about Hong Kong. It was a very pivotal moment in my life in regards to politics because, again, I went to a foreign country or foreign city, if you will, and I got to see what true oppression looked like and true, I guess, restrictive and communist government looked like. The people in Hong Kong were fighting for their freedom and for their democracy because it was an autonomous area. But the Chinese were trying to come in and take away the democracy, take away the freedoms from the Hong Kong people, and they pushed back. I've never seen a city that was so united around the same cause. They were all working together. You had kids in the street, you had adults, you had the elderly in the street, all pushing back against China because the Hong Kong people, again, truly understood what it was like to live under a communist regime or like an actual dictator, which I would even go so far as to call Xi Jinping at this point. And they were really fighting for their freedoms and their rights, the right to remain autonomous from China, the right to not be surveilled. Many people in China, not many people know this actually, they have social credit scores in China. And if you jaywalk or if you speak out badly against the government, your score will go down. And you won't be able to travel outside of China. You won't be able to buy a plane ticket, a train ticket. Go look that up. It's in Bloomberg. It sounds like something straight out of Black Mirror because it is, but that's the state of our world right now.
Yeah, dude, that's wild. It's wild even, you mentioned that the elderly were even in the streets fighting for their freedom, a lot of elderly people, I feel like universally don't care about what's going on. They're just like they're outlandish, they'll say whatever they want, and they just wanna mind their own business. But that just shows how prevalent this issue is, and it's not even an issue, it's like, I wanna say it's a human rights issue. The people of China are truly, in the true definition of the word, oppressed, and I hate when people here in the US say like, "Oh, certain people groups are oppressed." And I was like, "Do you know the definition, like the definition of the word oppressed? No one is oppressing you from doing whatever you want in this country, essentially. Like no one's oppressing you from voting, like voter suppression. No one's oppressing your speech, except they kind of are now. But yeah, I don't know. I just really don't like the way Americans use the word oppression because they don't know the gravity of what it really means.
Exactly. And you know what, Mika? A lot of people don't know this, but you and I are such good friends that we became good friends because I finally found another girl who understands what's actually going on in this country, and that's you. We've had so many good conversations in regards to just the complete complacency of Americans, the complete spoiled attitude that a lot of us have here. Many Americans push for communism and socialism in our country because they don't truly understand what that looks like. It's actually really funny because right now, DHS came out and said, hey, if you're from Cuba or you're from Haiti, which again, two places right now that are experiencing severe communism and experiencing, the people pushing back, um, our DHS said that they were not allowed to come and seek asylum here in the US.
You're kidding me.
Meanwhile, yeah, this just came out yesterday and it's pretty crazy to me because our border is wide open. I went down there myself to McAllen, Texas a couple weeks back, and I have friends that are down there constantly. They work for Fox News and they're constantly putting out all of these pictures and videos of just hordes and hordes of illegal immigrants crossing our border every single day. But as soon as we have Cuba rising up against communism, no, you guys can't come over here. And why is that? Because they know that those Cuban people, if they came to America, would not vote for the Democrats that have been pushing socialism and communism in our country.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And that is just insane to think. I'm like, "Oh, we're so compassionate. We're so empathetic towards people. We should open our borders. We should keep our borders open."
Mhm.
Meanwhile, no. No. These people can come in, but you can't. It's ridiculous. But back to China, I wanted to ask you, or actually I wanted to let you know I saw something last night. I was just looking up something about the Confucius institutes here in the US,
Mhm.
and they've dwindled a lot over the past, I think, 20 years. They started in 2004, and now there's only, I think, 40 institutes in all of the US, which is crazy because the Confucius Institutes, I don't know if you know, you probably do, but they are basically like indoctrination institutions for Chinese propaganda and like Chinese ideology, basically like CCP ideology, not even Chinese. But now they're trying to change their names of these institutions. They're trying to change the names from Confucius Institutes to the Chinese International Language Institute or something like that to make it sound like it's, oh no, it's just a learning program. It's a language learning facility. It's not the Confucius Institute because it's gotten a lot of backlash these past 20 years that, a lot of people or the US is trying to take them out. But now they're changing their language so that they can be kept in, which I think is absolutely wild.
It is crazy, and we've seen an intense manipulation of our language in this country, and that's how we've gotten to where we've gotten to. Meek, I'm sure you saw this over July 4th. We had a lot of Democrat politicians come forward and say, July 4th just means freedom for the white man. We're the black people that are free in this country. We're still enslaved. America's an awful country. It was built on the backs of slaves. And a lot of conservatives latched on to the Democrats and the liberals who were attacking America, attacking our country, attacking the flag, attacking July 4th. But what I was hoping that anybody would do, and I think that there were very few people who actually pointed this out, is hey, let's take a step back from looking at like, hey, Democrats and liberals, because this is a bigger issue. Who put these ideologies into these Americans' heads? Who is paying off these Democrat politicians? It's China. Who is influencing the younger generation and college kids to accept socialism and communism in our country? It's China. Who runs Hollywood? China. You know, the recent Top Gun movie, the Taiwanese flag, not on the jacket of the main character because Taiwan is not an autonomous country according to China. So they took the flag off. China owns so many different aspects of our country and they influence us every single day. Always like to say that America is a very strong country and cannot be attacked from the outside. You have to come on the inside and destroy America from within. And China has done a very, very good job of that. And that's why we're also seeing the feminization of our military right now and the complete destruction of our entire country. You know, we have the race wars, we're pitting American against American. China.
Mhm. Girl, you're so right. You're absolutely right. I mean, uh, the quote that you just mentioned, you have to attack, you have to have the US go against it, or like for the US to collapse, it has to,
Be
be from
infiltrated from within.
be infiltrated from within. And that's
Hmm.
actually something that is not new, in history. Like the Mayans actually, fought against each other. They caused genocides within each other, and that's how the civilization broke down because they just murdered each other, and that's why there are no longer like Mayans or the Incas because that civilization killed itself. And so, like you were saying, I mean the Chinese have just really been super insidious, or the CCP, I'll say, the CCP has been super insidious in, invading the minds of our youth with these thoughts of, America is bad. The American idea is harmful to everyone, or it's harmful to certain groups of people. And so it makes other groups of people feel guilty about that. And so they have to they either hate themselves, hate America for what it is, for what it stands for, or both.
Exactly, exactly. And that's why we're seeing the American flag being burned on the streets of America on the 4th of July when we should be celebrating the country that allows these people to burn the flag on our streets and speak out against our government. A lot of the people pushing, again, this communist and socialist ideology in our country don't understand that all of this pushback against the government, the defund the police movement, as soon as the a communist comes into power in our country, they're not going to have the ability to do that anymore. They're not going to have the ability to speak out against their government. They're not going to have the ability to burn the flag, or they're not going to have any freedoms, but they're also coddled. They're also
Mm,
indoctrinated. They've all been told that they deserve a safe space and this and that. And that's why they're ushering all of this in. We create fake problems in this country
yeah.
because we really don't have any problems here, to be quite honest with you. I'll even go so far as to say that this whole boogeyman of racism and white supremacy is non existent in this country. I've never experienced racism in my life. And I also think that racism is a big perception thing, to be quite honest with
Mm.
you. Not all situations, granted, but in regards to where we are today, it's like, hey, a white Starbucks worker looks at a black person wrong, and guess what? They're now a racist and their life is ruined.
Yeah, dude, critical race theory, and people are trying to teach that in our schools. Like, everything is racism and nothing is racism. So it's like you can't win either way. They're trying to teach kids this too. I mean, I think I heard something the other day, or maybe it was yesterday, that some young boy, I don't know, either in his teens or younger, tried to commit suicide because he was so ashamed of, just white people, the people that committed evils in the past, which aren't just white people. Every single person, every single race in this country and worldwide has committed atrocities. Like, can we talk about Genghis Khan? Can we talk about, Mao? Can we talk about Lenin? All these other people, Lenin's white, I believe, but Genghis Khan was Asian, and one of the most evil people in all of history. So it's like no one wants to talk about like Asians hating themselves.
And again, too, like I hate to bring it up, but it is a very valid point of okay, who sold African people to Americans, or
Exactly.
who shipped them away? African people. Who originally enslaved the African people? African people in Africa. So if you really want to get down to the nitty gritty of it, and who needs to be paying reparations in this country, let's go all the way back to the source then.
Mm, so true. So true, as John Doyle says. No, dude, so I wanna go back to entitlement though, because I think that that's a big issue here. I think that you're absolutely right in that a lot of people in America are just, especially younger millennials or even just millennials and, Gen Zers, are very entitled and have had everything handed to them in their entire lives, and they have nothing to fight for, and either they don't have God in their lives or they're searching for some kind of like outside meaning to like make them feel significant. And because they've had everything handed to them, they have nothing else to fight for except, these made up issues that you're talking to or talking about.
Exactly, exactly, and that's the absolute state of our country. And it was this specific attack on Donald Trump that made me realize how entitled we are as a country and how spoiled we are, and how much misconception we have about hard work and about money in this country, and again about um, I guess what we deserve, really. Yeah, entitlement. People love to demonize Donald Trump because he said that with a small loan of $1 million, blah, blah, blah. And people are like, a small loan of $1 million? Are you kidding me? I would kill for a small loan of $1 million. And to the average person, that seems like a very big sum. But if you give the average American $1 million and ask them to turn it into $1 billion, the probably like 98% of people would not know where to start. They wouldn't be able to do it and they would fail.
Mhm.
So when people started attacking Donald Trump when he said that, I realized that as a civilization, we're so entitled, and we think too that if you just get money, you're just successful. If you are a white person, you're just privileged. But at the end of the day, every single person still has to work hard. Donald Trump has worked hard his whole entire life and career, and that is how he was able to turn a million into billions and into an extremely successful industry. If you gave the average American that opportunity, they wouldn't know what to do with it. They don't have hard work, they don't have that work ethic. And that's why, as a country today, we have so many people saying, oh, well, if I just had this, if I just had that. And they're constantly pointing their finger because they refuse to take hold of their own lives and actually make a change and use their own, like, work ethic to help them do something with their lives.
That's straight up facts. Like straight up facts. Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of people are very envious of others who have more than them in this country. we're all given the cards that we were given, and all we can do is the most with what we were given. We can't envy for what we don't have. We can't take from what we don't have either. I mean, a lot of people talk about equity right now, and equity, I believe, only works in terms of like equity with the Lord. Everyone deserves a fair outcome when it comes to God. Like everyone deserves equal access to God. And with Christianity, I think that it's very different from the other religions, because other religions have to earn their way to God, or they believe that they have to earn their way to God. Whereas Christianity, God gives himself freely to us and to whoever and to all. But I'm digressing, and that's just more of like an anecdote. What I want to get to is, though, equity in terms of like governmental equity and societal equity. It's just it's kind of ironic how the way things work, or how the way Democrats want the way things to work in this country, and by that I mean what they fight for, like equity, it ends up actually ironically being the opposite of what they want. They say that they want equality for all people, and it ends up being like there's equality for no people. Or they talk about, like the Russia collusion hoax from Donald Trump's presidency. It actually turns out that they're the ones who are, you know, I
Doing exactly what they said Trump was doing.
Thank you for that. Words are hard. But yeah, so I've just been finding out that that's what the Democrats have been doing like throughout all of history. They say that they're for one thing, but it's actually the opposite. They're literally in bed with China. Eric Swalwell.
Exactly. Mika, we're on the same exact wavelength. We always are when you have these conversations, because I was going to say, Eric Swalwell got away with sleeping with Chinese spy. Nobody gave a damn about it. Let's also look at Diana Feinstein, Chinese driver for years. Again, like we have Chinese infiltration in our government for sure at this point, but instead of our intelligence agencies actually looking into the threat of foreign interference into our ideologies and into our lives, what are our intelligence agencies doing? They're just as corrupt as all of these politicians, and they're targeting private American citizens. They're spying on Tucker Carlson instead of actually focusing on the threats to this country.
No, you're absolutely right, and thank you for bringing it back to China, because I definitely have been I've been trapped in the idea, or not the idea, but just like the routine of just trying to look at the other side, the political side in the U.S. But it's like it's not even that. Like it goes so much further than that. It's seriously like what you were saying. China is trying to infiltrate their ideologies into this country, and I've thought the same thing since last year. I talked to my cousin last year, and I said, okay, this might seem crazy, but I think that China's trying to take over the world right now. And it sounded crazy at the time. Last year was just wild as it was. But now we find out that the coronavirus came out of the Wuhan lab in China. So it's like all of these conspiracy theories, aka deep research, is coming to fruition and coming out that they're not conspiracy theories; they're just straight up true. And China has been behind all of these, I guess, malicious intents that are going out in the U.S. But I wanted to ask you, Sav, what actions do you think that average Americans should take to, I guess, stop these kind of ideologies from perpetuating in our culture, or just what actions do you think that we should take in general?
I think that we should start with the education system, because we right now are currently indoctrinating the next generation. We are targeting, or not us as conservatives or right wingers, but the left has done a very good job of weaponizing the education system in their favor and indoctrinating the youth, indoctrinating our teenagers, indoctrinating the next set of voters. So we really need to take back our education system and start teaching kids again American history, the realities of this country, because right now it's Christopher Columbus was awful. The 1619 Project is fact. America was built on the backs of slaves. If you're a white person, you're inherently bad, and you're subhuman. These are all quotes from celebrities, black celebrities specifically. We have a very big problem in this country, and it's because we're seeing it now because I think the millennials were the first group that were really targeted with this. I remember when I was in college, I was kind of at like the tail end of just normal education where I could kind of see it seeping in, but it didn't really affect me too much. And I never really talked about politics either, but I knew it was an issue. I knew it was a point of contention, but it wasn't so much in my face to where I was like, wow, I hate America. This is awful. But the left has done a really great job of weaponizing our education system and therefore weaponizing the next generation against America. So I say we take that back first, and also we start pushing morality and values in this
Mm.
country again. We have an entire generation who thinks it's okay to murder unborn children, who thinks it's okay to again, have drag queen story hour in front of children. I don't know if you saw this
Disgusting.
story, Mika, but and again, I hate even saying this, but like this is the actual name of this character in the UK. They had a dildo butt monkey
Yeah.
flapping around in front of children. These are children. And then the Wee Spa in LA, they had a grown man who identified as a woman in
Mhm.
front of little girls with his Johnson out swinging left to right. And that's the absolute state of our country right now. This is, we as a society should be able to all rally around protecting our kids. And that's the one thing that we can't seem to do. And that's how you know that we have a serious problem here. So take back the education system, bring back values, and save the kids. I think that that's where we start.
Good. Very well said. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more there. I mean, so how do I mean, what if we're not involved with the education system? You know, like I'm an engineer, and most of the people that I know, I have some friends who are teachers and principals at schools. But other than them, I mean, the most of the people that I know are not involved in the education system. So, protecting the children for sure. Like we can do that in the streets. I think I saw something on YouTube the other day where this person is enacting or just enacting like taking a child and no one does anything. Like in plain sight, he does this, and the kid's obviously okay, but like no one did anything. So it's
Mhm.
like, how do you stand up for something like that? I think they were so numb to the actual horrible things that go on in the country because we're so attached to our phones. We're so in our own world that we don't notice what's going on around us. So I think being more aware of what is happening and how there are awful people in this world who do want to hurt our kids should be in the forefront of our minds, and we should definitely look out for it. I mean, how many times do you hear your Amber Alert go off and you're like,
Exactly. And that's again, too, like that is all by design. Us being addicted to our phones, us not actually going and socializing in the real world. And I think for me too, as I get older, what I realize in regards to mental health, in regards to my own clarity, every single weekend, I not only like get away from social media and not get on social media, but I'll straight up put my phone on airplane mode because I still like to listen to music. So I'll use my phone for that, but I'll straight up put it on airplane mode because I don't even want text messages. And I think so many people are so attached to their phone, again, done by design to keep us all distracted, all subservient, um, and a lot of people need to get back to reality. We're all in this digital world. We're all seeing all of these things happening on Twitter. We're pitting American against American, but digitally, so that way in the real world we're all hating each other. When in reality, if you went out on the street and you said, "Hey, I'm against attacking kids," or you're the average American would be like, "Yeah, I am too." So we need to get back to tradition, values, and going and actually talking and socializing with our fellow Americans on the street in real life, not on a digital space. um, and yeah, like you said, if you're not in the education system, I mean, that is another thing that you can do. It's like go out, talk to your fellow American, and go have hard conversations with people. If you have a cousin, if you have an aunt, and you know they're liberal, and or you know that they're pro-vax, go talk to them and ask them why. Challenge people's thoughts and opinions. You don't have to be a part of the education system or a part of the government to make a change. All you have to do is be willing to stand up for your beliefs, ask hard questions, and think critically.
mm. Yeah, that's something that we have definitely lost is thinking critically. And I think those are really great actions to take for sure. And pardon my voice, geez, I sound like a smoker. I don't know what's going on today. But yeah, no, Sav, those are all really great points. Um
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you also about gosh, I don't know what I want to talk to you about. Is there something that you wanted to mention? I always learn from you.
For me? Yeah, what am I talking about nowadays? What am I passionate about right now? Mika, I don't know about you, but like have you been feeling kind of black pilled lately? Like how has your mental state in regards to politics been lately?
That's a really great question. I've definitely been feeling black pilled, but more so God pilled. Like, okay, I take that word from you. When you were on Alex's show, you and Elijah, um, Alex said something about you get to the black pill, then you get to the clown pill, and then you get to the God pill. And I so felt that. I was like, yes. I mean, I'm so hopeful. I mean, I know that things have to get so much worse before they get better because when they get better, Jesus is going to come back. I seriously think he's going to come back in our lifetime, Sav. Like, I'm not even kidding. But
Girl, same. I'm like, how could it get worse? How could it get worse?
how could it get worse? So I'm super God pilled right now, and I try to not focus on like all the abhorrent things that are going on, though I am still informed on what is happening. I'm not, shaken or anything like that because I know that my Father in heaven is with me and taking care of me, and he's made that absolutely, like, plainly clear, and I just really want to share that with other people so that they can have the same kind of hope and not despair in, what is rightfully so, a time of despair and a time of hurt, and so many people are just taking their own lives because of how dark this world is. So I just really want to spread that to the world. I mean, the Bible says that Jesus isn't going to come back until every tribe, tongue, and nation knows who Jesus is, and there's still so many people out in the world who don't know who he is. So for me, just wanting to spread the word and share the gospel is what's keeping me hopeful and knowing that he's working in this place.
See, I'm kind of the same way. I played a video on my podcast last night of a biological man breastfeeding a baby.
Oh God, I saw
I
that.
and my immediate response after was just start the rapture. Start it right now.
Start the rapture.
I was like, that's the only response to this. And you know what? Again, too, I get through these periods where I do feel very black pilled, if you will, or just like I've given up on humanity, and I have, but I know God hasn't given up on humanity, and God gave us this voice. God put us on this earth to keep fighting and keep pushing back against evil, and I know that we're on the right path because of how hard people come down on us for our views, for our work, for spreading the truth, the fact that we're called liars and slandered all of the time. I feel like that's how you kind of know that you're on the right path and you're fighting for something worth fighting for. Because if you do look at everyone on the left, it's a big echo chamber. Look at big tech, look at Twitter. The only people that are allowed to thrive in that space are people on the left who are repeating these bad ideologies of like, hey, let's show kids porn so that way they have, good sexual education, and
Mm-mm.
let's abort children because they're like a tapeworm. I watched a video today and this woman was like, if you're pro life and you get tapeworms, then I hope you want to be a good host because it has a beating heart. And it's like,
That's
we as a
disgusting.
society are, yeah, we're comparing a human child to a tapeworm now, and that's something that's been said previously, but it's like that is the utter state of the left. That's what up tech and all these platforms, and that's what's allowed to thrive in society. But that's also why they're come down on so hard, and that's how we know that we're on the right path and we are preaching God's word, and we're talking about the correct subjects.
Mhm. No, absolutely. Speaking of God, isn't it absolutely crazy how last night the mural of George Floyd was struck by lightning? Isn't that just
Girl,
insane?
I literally captioned that God has spoken. Sorry, God has spoken.
Dude, it's wild because, like, I don't know what is in that brick wall, but there's no metal, so how can freaking lightning strike that building? And maybe I'm not thinking about this critically at all, but seriously, I mean, that is
You don't
just
need to think
too
critically about this. God, that's it. That's the only answer.
for real, for real. Dude, isn't that just wild? I mean, this reminds me so much of Romans 1, and we've been we've been talking about Romans 1 since, like, last year, I think, Sav, but,
We
Charlie,
really have.
if you can pull it up, Charlie, just look up Romans 1 ESV. And, I think it's verse 18, starting at verse 18, where it's just describing how well, at least in the US, but the world also right now, how it's going, and, I think it says hold on, he has it pulled up right now. You know what, I'm just gonna get my Bible, hold on. But Romans in general is just my favorite book in the Bible, and it's because, 1, it's just really it's full of Paul's theology and, like, what he thinks about Jesus and who Jesus is in general. But, Romans 1 just really gets to me because of how eerily similar what we're seeing in, like, the world right now. So I'm just gonna read it right now if you don't mind. It says it's called, God's wrath on the unrighteous, or on unrighteousness. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. And isn't that just wild how George Floyd was a very ungodly man, and he definitely, like, his death really did suppress the truth of what happened. But continuing on, for what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made. So they are without excuse. For although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things. And dude, it's just wild. The rest of this chapter too just talks about how God gave up people to their lustful desires, how he gave them up to their pursuit of homosexuality and their pursuit of just like envy and murder and strife and deceit and maliciousness, slander. They're haters of God, insolent, haughty, all these other things. And you're seeing that so much today in our country and in the world. And it's just like, yeah, like you said, bring on the rapture. I'm ready. I am ready.
Savannah, I don't think we're hearing you.
Uh-oh. Well, whoa, we're back. No, but what did you think about that, Sav? What did you think about Romans 1 and how that relates to the things that we're seeing today in the country?
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought this up because I've been doing a lot of deep thinking about this subject in regards to dating, because that's something that a lot of people have a lot of trouble with, nowadays. And I was thinking about the concept of dating, and we as a society engage in so much premarital sex. We try to stray away from the traditional, like, let's get married young, let's have kids. We've demonized all of that. And now you see this entire society that's engaging in premarital sex with everyone and trying to, use sex as and people to fulfill them. You now see this entire generation of people who have anxiety, who have depression, because they strayed away from, again, the way that God designed humans to ultimately be, and the way God designed, I guess, the world. And we've all been pushing back against that. We've all been living in sin in our society. And that's why we see so many of the problems that we're seeing nowadays. That's why we're seeing all of the lies, the deceit, the depression, the anxiety, the drug use, the alcohol use, because people are trying to find fulfillment in something, anything other than God. And if we as a society all went back to Christ, a lot of our problems would be solved. If we went back to, again, having morals and values and go back to tradition of having family, of supporting each other, of following God's rules. Again, the Bible explicitly states that God is never going to steer you wrong. And even though, he may take something out of your life or put something in the Bible that doesn't seem like fun, ultimately it's because the consequences outweigh, you feeling good for 5 seconds. And God knows that and God sees that. But we as a society are so stubborn. And going back to George Floyd, too, I genuinely think, just like in biblical times, God would strike down idols. And that kind of seems what this lightning strike was, God striking down the idol that is George Floyd, because people in our society today have idolized him. And he was not a good person. He died from a fentanyl overdose. He's been one of the causes of the complete division in our country. He wasn't a good person, like I just stated. And this, to me, seems like God striking down a false idol in our society.
No, totally. And I want to be really careful with how I say things because I know when it comes to talking about the Lord and talking about the Bible, that it can, depending on how you talk about it, it can lead people, more away from God. Because, like, if you point someone who is very, I guess, very immature in their faith and you point them towards a verse that is like something that they're still struggling with, they're going to,
Mhm.
continue to be selfish and be like, well, I don't like that, so I don't think this whole Christianity thing is for me.
That doesn't apply to me.
That doesn't apply to me. I'm fine the way I am. Let me just
Mhm.
continue to do what I've been doing and let's see if I feel better, even though I haven't the past, I don't know, 100 times that I've done it. But I digress. Anyway, I just want to let people know that there is grace for whatever you have done, regardless if you've had premarital sex or regardless if you've done drugs or whatever it may be. The Lord is so gracious. And by so gracious, I mean infinitely gracious and loves you so, so, so much that there's nothing that you could do to ever make him not love you. And he wants to know you if you don't know him right now. He wants to know you. He wants you to know him and know that his way is better than the world's way because obviously you can see explicitly that the world's way is far, far more horrid than we could have ever imagined. So he loves you.
Exactly, exactly. And I think a lot of people too, because again, I think with my rhetoric as well, I'm very, very blunt. But like you just stated too, sin is sin in the eyes of God, and no human is without blame or without sin. And so, I never want to be the type of Christian who's condemning people blindly. I have committed my own sins in life, and I struggle with my own things, but I think that as, Christians and as members of society, if we all collectively came together and realized this and we worked on this together and we became better together, it would ultimately benefit everyone in a positive way.
No, girl, and I totally agree with you. Like, I struggle with my own sins for sure. I mean, I we are all imperfect, flawed
Mhm.
human beings, and that's why we need God's grace. Like, God knew that we needed His compassion, and He so freely shows it to us. And I completely think that you're right, and that we need to have that kind of grace towards each other and show each other that, hey, I might not, I don't know, think the same way you do. We're gifted in different ways, but we can say what is blatantly wrong in society. We can say that pedophilia is abhorrent and that we should protect our kids. We can say that China is abhorrent in the way that they actually oppress their people. We can call a spade a spade. Where it comes down to division is the definition of words. And when people think that Americans here are oppressed when they're not, when people think that pedophilia is just another sexuality and they're part of the LGBT community, that's where things become evil, where good becomes bad and bad becomes good.
Exactly, exactly. And we we just need to hit the reset button on our society because
The Great
we
Reset?
really have, yeah, not the great reset, a different type of reset. But
No.
things are just getting so crazy. And two, again, like you said, I produced Slightly Offensive with Elijah Schaefer. That shows a lot of fun, and the way that we talk about a lot of these issues, because Elijah, a very Christian man as well, we take it from a comical standpoint because it's like that's what you have to do sometimes because things do seem so disastrous, but put a comical spin on what's going on and remember that God's ultimately in control. And if this is his plan for right now, then we need to trust it and live through it and understand that something good will eventually come out of this.
That is so true. What the devil intends for good, God intends gosh, what the devil intends for evil, God intends for good. But yeah, speaking of the Great Reset, do you think that's actually gonna happen? Do you think that, like, Agenda 2030 is gonna come to fruition?
100% girl. Specifically because Klaus Schwab just came out with a quote the other day that was like, nationalism is a huge threat to the Great Reset. And they're not even trying to hide it anymore. And again, with a lot of these elites, with big tech, with all of these politicians, they don't even have to hide anything anymore because they know that the average person is so subservient and complacent that they're not actually going to do anything. So they're just straight up coming out now. I mean, um, the Biden administration just said that they're going to start monitoring our text messages so that way
Yeah.
vaccine misinformation isn't spread. We have President Macron in France pushing mandatory vaccine passports on
Mhm.
people.
I saw
We just
that.
had American interference in regards to destabilizing Haiti. Americans have been tied to assassinating the president of Haiti. People are speculating that's because he was anti-COVID vaccine. There was also another African president who was also assassinated, and he was also anti WHO, anti COVID. So it's just very interesting because you see all of these things happening, coming to fruition. When you hear someone like Alex Jones, it's like, oh, that guy's crazy. What is he talking about? He was talking about Jeffrey Epstein and child pedophilia in Hollywood 15 years ago. He's been talking about how all of these devices we have been spying on us. And now it's all coming out and it's not even being hidden anymore because we've had Alex Jones for the past 20 years screaming, crying crazy. And nobody listened to him about it. And so I feel like the elites kind of took that as their cue to say, okay, great, usher it in. No one's going to do anything. And here we now have Klaus Schwab. We have, what's his name? It was just last week. And he was basically talking about how he hopes that financial institutions here in the US would be more like China. He was asked
Oh.
about, yeah, Charles Munger. He was asked
Mm.
about, again, Jack Ma being disappeared by the Chinese. And he was like, I wish that the US would do that to people who speak badly about the government too.
Who is Charles Munger? Like, I don't know who he is.
I think that he's like the CEO or one of the founders of like one of these big banks. I can't remember
He
which
is
one,
the
but
vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway.
Mm.
Vice Chairman, Berkshire Hathaway. There we go. I was like, I know it's a big bank. I can't remember which one, but yeah. Basically, an elitist in the US who runs our financial system. Girl, don't even get me started on the Federal Reserve. There's so many different layers and angles that we're being attacked from in society today. And again, a lot of these powerful billionaire elites are not hiding things anymore because they know the average person's so complacent they are not going to do anything anyway.
Yeah. No, they're buying all of our homes, they're buying all of our land so that we'll own nothing and be happy.
Exactly, exactly. Eat the bugs, live in your pod, and
Eat
don't
the
say anything.
bugs. I don't wanna eat the bugs.
I don't want the cicada tacos, please.
Oh god. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be crazy. I know that we're talking about it right now, and we were talking at, when we had lunch last time you were in Austin, like, why can't we like, what are these, like, screens in between us at this restaurant? Like, they're not doing anything. Like, the microbes are gonna get right over this friggin' plastic
So
ware, whatever,
ridiculous.
and you asked me something like, when, oh gosh, I don't even remember what you asked me, but there's gonna come a time where we're not gonna be able to have these kind of conversations, which is really scary to think about, honestly. Like, ugh, yikes. But like we were saying
Yeah.
earlier, God is good and all these things have to happen and it's gonna be all okay in the end. We gonna be all right.
Exactly, exactly. We just all have to we might all be dragged along for the ride, though. That's the only thing.
Yeah, yeah, we will. But you know what? We'll endure to the end. Um, all right, Sav. Well, is there anything that you wanted the audience to know? I only have like 30 subscribers, but is there anything that you want to relay to, like the average person who watches this?
Well, all of your 30 subscribers are very essential. And I think that the most powerful people in this country are the average Americans that work every single day that keep this country going. And I think that the average American doesn't put enough emphasis on how much power they have. And that's the problem. Once the collective wakes up and they realize that, hey, the power is really in the people and it's in the masses, and there's more of us than there are of them. Once the people wake up and they finally decide that enough is enough, only then will change be enacted. I'm not calling for anyone to be violent or anything like that. All I'm calling for is to it's for people to have their voices heard, to stand up. And if you think that, oh, well, I'm just a middle class American who shops at Walmart and eats McDonald's on the weekend, I can't enact any change, you're wrong. Because guess what? I never, ever, ever knew anything about politics. 4 years ago, I was nobody. And now I've been on almost every single major news network, on the right at least. And I've enacted as much change as I can because I finally got over that mental hump of I'm just an average person. No one in this country's average. No one listening, all 30 of you, nobody's average here. You can enact serious change if you really want to. So that would be my message to the average American. You can make a change, believe it, and do it.
Well said. Well said, Sav. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on to the show. I know we've been wanting to do this for so long, so thanks for coming on.
Yeah, Mika, it was a lot of fun. I'll have to get you on my podcast as well. To your viewers, I have my own podcast called Rapid Fire. You can find it on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and YouTube. I'm at Sav Says as well. And I'm going to have to get you on sometime, Mika, because I really love talking with you. You even teach me things as well, which is why I love being friends with you, because I feel like you grow my brain every single time we talk. And I love that. I love smart women, and you're the smartest.
Girl, you grow my brain. Thanks so much for that. Y'all follow Sav on Instagram too. I think it's called your handle is Sav with one N. Follow her on Instagram, on Gab, and all of the other social media platforms that you can find her on. Alrighty, I think that's it. Thanks, Charlie.